Hi, it's Penny here, and if you've watched my videos before, you know that I haven't really been buying books for the last couple of years, mainly because we were going to be moving to a new city, and I didn't want to have more books to move than I had to. Also, the whole moving thing involved like selling houses, buying houses, a bunch of financial work, which meant that I didn't really have any money to buy books anyway, so I haven't really bought any books for a while. However, we've now moved to a new house. This is it. And I also just managed to buy myself some new bookshelves. So now I have not only the money for some new books, but also the space. However, I don't want to go too crazy with buying books. So I thought today I would share kind of my budgeting book buying plans, partly to keep myself accountable, but also maybe so we could have a bit of a conversation about like what's a reasonable approach to book buying. Of course, it's going to be different for everyone, but like how do you approach it? How am I going to approach it? Like, I guess my main concern is I want to get the most value for my money, but I also like don't want to get tempted into like going crazy and becoming some kind of like hoarder book lady with like my rooms overflowing with books. So to start off, my budgeting plan is going to be that I'm going to give myself basically $10 a week to spend on books. That comes out as about $500 a year. Now, part of me feels like that's a lot of money to spend on books. Like, I haven't always had a lot of money. I still don't really have that much money, so it feels like a lot of money to spend on books. However, also, once we finished our move, when I bought myself some bookshelves, I also rewarded myself for all my hard work in the moving process. I rewarded myself with $500 to buy books, and it was not hard to spend. And I didn't actually get that many books for my $500, partly because I bought a lot of new books with that. So like $500, it can be a lot, but it can also not be a lot depending on how you look at it. But that's where I'm going to kind of start my budget, and then we'll see how we go, both with my finances and with like my enjoyment from what I'm buying. Now, where possible, I'm going to spend that $10 a week at secondhand bookshops. And then I think what I'm planning is that every week I'll go to my local secondhand bookshops. Actually, not every week, because now I live in a fairly small town. I've noticed that their stock doesn't really refresh that often anyway. But anyway, regularly I will go to the secondhand bookshops around my town and spend that $10 a week. And then at the end of the month, whenever I've got left, I can put into like a fund for buying new books. And I'm going to make myself like a spreadsheet of all the books that I want to buy so that I can prioritize and spend my money like in the best place. Because actually, while I wasn't buying books, what I found would still often like fulfill that urge to buy books is just to have like a nice list of books to buy, or like books that I wanted to read, and add the books to that list instead. So instead of buying them, you like tell yourself you can buy it in the future, and you can still have the joy of like shopping and looking and planning. You just delay the actual buying of the books. And sometimes that means you realize you didn't really need them anyway. And honestly, I love spreadsheets and planning, so planning is half the fun of things. So there's kind of two main categories of books that I want to buy. One is books that I haven't read yet and I want to read them, so I want to buy them so that I can read them. When it comes to those ones, mainly if I can read them from the library, I will do that first. And then of course I want to be buying them secondhand if I can, before finally getting to buying them new. And then the other category is books that I've already read and I really loved. Of course, I love having my favorite books just around on my shelves so that I can look at them and enjoy them. But also, I only really want to have ones on my shelves that I would want to reread. So what I'm going to do at the end of this video, I think, is basically go through with you through my shelves, and we'll work out what books I want to buy in order to kind of complete the things that are going on my shelf. So there's like some partial series that I have and things like that. But firstly, let's talk about my TBR books, because I did actually kind of start my spreadsheet for the books that I want to buy that I haven't read yet. And as we kind of go through both those different categories, I think we'll come up with some more kind of ideas and plans and strategies around what I'm going to let myself buy. I'm trying to like make the decisions upfront about what I won't buy, so that if I see it in a shop, I'm not tempted by it because I've already decided not to buy it. So in my spreadsheet, I've further broken down my TBR into more categories. Firstly, we have the ones that are like 5-star predictions or like priority series that I want to read. And these are probably the ones that I want to read first. I went through my list of those, and most of them I can get from the library. So I don't need to buy them. But there were 3 that I can't get that way. So these will probably be the first 3 books that I buy new when I have some budget to do that. Then I also look through the new releases that are coming out this year that I'm excited about. And again, I've written down 3 that I would be willing to buy new. However, the more I look at The Listeners by Maggie Stiefvater. So I've loved everything I've read by Maggie Stiefvater so far. However, this one is her first adult book, and I'm seeing it listed as general fiction. And I think it's meant to have like a magical realism element, but like, am I gonna like it? Also, all my local stores only seem to be stocking this cover, and I don't like that cover. I prefer this cover, and I can't see anywhere I can buy that cover. So like, should I just wait to see if my library can get it? Because for a lot of those other new releases, I can't get them from the library yet, but I'm just going to wait and see whether the library gets them, because I think there is a good chance that the library will. And the library probably will get The Listeners, I think. So I'm a little bit unsure about The Listeners. We'll see. Maybe I won't buy it. I've got a little bit of time until the release date to decide. The same is true for School of Shards and Maggie the Undying, but those are both books where I've either loved the earlier books in the series or it's by an author that I absolutely love. So I'm pretty sure I can be confident about loving those. Then I also have another section on my TBR, which is like rereads. So I did start a project this year where basically every year I'm going to look at the books that I read 10 years ago, and from those books decide which ones I would want to reread and then try and reread them through the year. And I had a look at the ones that I have set aside as rereads for this year, and I pretty much own all of them. The only one I don't own is The Fog by Caroline B. Cooney, and I could probably get this from the library. However, I mean, this will come up when I get to my shelves, but I have the second and third books. I can't remember the order. Anyway, I have the second and third books from the series. These are kind of like point thrillers, classics from my teens. So I would like to get the first book in these editions. And I had a look online. I can see I could probably get it for under $10, which is maybe a lot for a thin book like this. Like normally these I would hope to get for a couple of dollars secondhand, but I've been looking out for this book for a while and I haven't found it in any secondhand bookshop. So I might actually just let myself spend the money on it. I think so. Then the last list of books I have on my TBR that I would consider reading are just my general Goodreads want to read list. Again, I went through that list and like 2/3 of them I can get from the library. So I'd read them from the library before I'd buy them. I think for the remaining ones, I will either read them via audiobook. So another thing I should say is that I do have a Libro FM and an Audible subscription. My Audible subscription, I've used up all my credits until July, and at that point I'll have to decide if I want to renew it or not. At the moment I'm enjoying Libro FM more, but not everything is available via Libro FM. But for my want to read list, if I can get it via audiobook and it's a book I'm willing to read via audiobook, then I'll do that. I can also get audiobooks from the library. So most of the books on that list I can get from the library. The ones I can't, I'll either listen to them via audiobook or I'm going to keep an eye out for them secondhand. I think actually a lot of them are fairly unlikely that I will find them secondhand, but also looking at my budget and the amount that books cost in New Zealand. So most new books in New Zealand cost between kind of $30, maybe if you're lucky $25, through to like $50, or like if it's a special one even more. So the likelihood of me getting to buy these want to read books unless I find them secondhand is pretty low. So I guess either we get lucky or I don't read them for a while. And there are also books on that want to read list where like I want to read them to try them to find out whether I'll like them, but I'm still a little bit uncertain whether they will be to my taste. So for those ones, I'm also probably only going to buy them secondhand if I can find them like at a lower price point. But if it's ones that I'm pretty confident about, I'd probably be willing to pay like a reasonable price. Some of them maybe even a little bit higher if I feel like it's a rarer book and it would cost me a lot new anyway, as long as it's in good condition. In the past, I've actually bought a lot of secondhand books not in good condition. Like, for example, this Crystal Singer and McCaffrey one is all like beaten up and terrible. But this book's so rare, so I just accept it. Most of the time, I would prefer to be buying secondhand books that are in good condition. And I would like book buying me not to get like pulled into buying a crappy edition of something just because I'm excited to have found it at all. Because I've definitely also had the case where I buy a book secondhand in really crappy condition and then I find another copy in better condition, so I buy the better condition one. And now I've bought the book twice when I could have just bought it once. Okay, so that's my thoughts about buying books for my TBR. Now let's go through my shelves and work out what books I want to buy based on ones I already own. Okay, let's start with these ones up here on this shelf. Oh, I can't really reach, but I have the first book of the Crescent City series. This one, I know if I came across the second and third books in a secondhand shop, I would be super tempted to buy them because the covers are so beautiful, but I didn't like those books at all. I hated them. I love the first book, hated the rest of the series. So I am not going to buy them, even if I see them secondhand. Same goes for, what is that series called? The Roots of Chaos series by Samantha Shannon. I have The Priory of the Orange Tree that I bought for just $2. It's a beautiful cover, so I keep the book up there. And I know, again, if I see the other books in the series secondhand, I will be tempted to buy them because the covers are beautiful. But I read A Day of Fallen Night. I didn't like it. I'm not going to read the other one that's coming out later in the year because I don't enjoy the books. I shouldn't get sucked in by beautiful covers. Then we just have a couple more completed series up there, so they're nothing. Then I have my Brandon Sanderson shelf. So I've got Elantris and the Mistborn Era 1 trilogy. I only have one book here from Mistborn Era 2, and to be honest, I didn't really like Mistborn Era 2. But I think, in my book collector completionist heart, if I find Mistborn Era 2 at a low price in a secondhand bookshop, which is possible because he's a very popular author. I think the one I have, my sister got for me for free, I think, from the library. So if I find those books at a low price, I will buy them. If I find, I would actually prefer them all in these smaller editions, so it could be like a nice straight line. That's not really that important, but if I did find them and they were still a reasonable price, maybe I'd get those. But I'm not willing to pay a lot to have books I don't even like. I'm even questioning myself buying them at all, but I think there's still a chance I might reread those books in the future. There are also, like I have the Stormlight Archives here as well, and there are some other Cosmere books that I would like to fill in my collection, like The Emperor's Soul is the rule. If I can't remember them, I can't buy them, probably. The Emperor's Soul, Edge Dancer, and Dawnshard, the novellas in the Stormlight Archives. Also Warbreaker. I have we'll come across it later, a really crappy version of that on my shelves. And it's also the white editions. So in the UK, they have those white editions of Brandon Sanderson books, and in New Zealand, we mostly get UK books. I think I hate those covers, is what I've realized. So if I see any of those covers, I'm not buying them because I end up just hating them. So that's dumb. I shouldn't buy them. But I would like to get a Warbreaker edition that was actually pretty, if I could. And I might even pay for that because I did like Warbreaker. Maybe when he finally gets to the sequel of Warbreaker, we'll get a better Warbreaker cover. Maybe I should wait till then. Maybe. Anyway, I think that's all the Cosmere books that I don't have. I think so. Then on this next shelf, this is a completed series, so that's fine. I will say I bought these editions mainly because I found out that these were going out of stock and they were replacing them with new editions that I hated the covers of, and so I bought these new. So that's the kind of exception where I might let myself buy things sooner if I realize there's like a deadline to buy something with a certain cover. I think I used to not care about covers, and I maybe need to try and reclaim that attitude. But for now, I'm kind of stuck with it. Also here we have some books from the First Law series. So this is 2 of the original trilogy, so I'd like to get the third one. I got both of these secondhand though, so I think there's a good chance that I could get the third one secondhand. So I'm probably gonna like in terms of buying this new, I would only buy it new once I'd already bought every other new book I wanted, which is pretty unlikely. So I guess in terms of like prioritizing my to buy spreadsheet, books that I'm more likely to find secondhand will be lower down in priority for me buying new. I also have the first book of the last trilogy in these editions, so I would probably try to get the last trilogy in those editions secondhand if I can. And of course, there's a bunch of standalones in the First Law world that I also don't have, so I guess if I find those secondhand, we'll buy those. I don't really know what editions I would want those in though. I haven't really looked to see what's available. Also, I have the first and third books from the Gentleman Bastards series. I really like this edition. Like, it's beautiful. If I could find the first and second books in this edition, that's what I would do. And I think I will actually hold out. Like, I see The Lies of Locke Lamora in this edition in secondhand shops all the time. But I think if I saw one in this edition, I would buy it again and replace this one. And I think, I don't know if it's wise, but if I see Red Seas Under Red Skies, the second book, and it's not in this edition, I think I would not buy it secondhand. I'm going to be tempted to buy it, but we'll see. Okay, then this, it's quite dark in here, but this is my TBR shelf, or the next couple of shelves really. This is my kind of, at the moment, this month TBR shelf. I will say this one I got from the library to read, and once I finish this series, because I have the first and the third book in the series, so if I saw this middle book secondhand, I would probably buy it now, even though I haven't read this yet. But I guess once I've read the series, I can decide whether to get rid of those first and third ones, or whether I want to buy the second one to complete the series. But if in the meantime I found the second one, I would probably still get it, because then I could sell it as a whole set if I did decide to do that. I also have currently the Cursed Princess Club, both Volume 1 and Volume 2 from the library. This I'm really sad about because the library only has these first 2 volumes, and I can read it for free from Webtoon, although slowly, because I think there's a limit to how much you can read in a day. I love the Cursed Princess Club. I would love to own these, the whole series. So I think I will put the whole series on my books to buy list, but it's very unlikely I would find them secondhand. But I think they do cost a little bit. This is the problem with all graphics, is they cost a little bit more. And then the series tend to be longer, so you end up spending quite a lot for the series. But I do love this series, so these will go on the spreadsheet. I'm just not sure how far up the priority I can actually bump them. Okay, further down on the bookshelves. Most of these are like first books in series, and also most of these I can get the series, the rest of the books from the library, so I wouldn't buy them. The only one where that might not be true is the third Chronicles of Thomas Covenant the Unbeliever. I think there's a good chance I would see these at a secondhand bookshop, and I think I would buy them because I already have the first and second Chronicles of Thomas Covenant. So I think if it's a series I've already started, like this is kind of its own series but also a continuation, so since I've started it and liked it, I think I could allow myself to buy them if I see them. I also think there is a chance I might see some more of this series in secondhand bookshops, and if I do, I'm going to be tempted. I really want to hold off till I've read this first one, even though I did try the first chapter of this and I really liked it, and I think I'm going to love this book, but I haven't read it, so I'm not sure. So maybe only if I see it at a secondhand bookshop for cheap. If it's like a reasonable price or a more expensive price, maybe I'll just hold off. Nothing else up here. Oops. Except for me making a disaster. Down here is kind of mostly the books that I wanted to reread. So the only things I might want to buy here is basically these 2 trilogies. So this trilogy is the Midnight Texas trilogy. Is that what it's called? I have the first 2 books in these editions and then the last one in a different edition. If I found this one for a cheap to reasonable price at a secondhand bookshop in these editions, I would buy it. And same for this trilogy. I have them in all the size except for the first book. If I find the first book in the smaller size, I will buy it, but only secondhand. I wouldn't ever buy it new just to have matching editions. And I actually got this first book from a secondhand book fair, and I only bought it because of the cat. But also, I think with these rereads, really, I should be trying to do my rereads. Either I'll already own them, or I should get them from the library before I buy them, because what if I reread a book and then I realize, no, I hate this now. Like, even if I loved it 10 years ago, if I hate it now, I'll be annoyed if I've spent money on it just to reread it and discover I hate it, right? So as each year's rereads kind of comes in place, I will try to use the library first. Then on this very bottom shelf that you can't really see, it's mostly non-fiction, but there are a few graphic-y ones here. The only one that's probably relevant to this conversation is my Lock and Key. So I just have this one, which is not even the main series. It's kind of like some shorter comic stories set in the world, but I would love to own the Lock and Key series. Again though, graphic novels, very expensive. So I guess I would try to find them secondhand, but I feel like that's very unlikely because I've never seen them. I hardly ever see graphic novels in any secondhand bookshops around here. So maybe I need to do some research. I know there's a few different editions, like different levels of bind up. Those are going to need to go on the like buy new kind of priority list. Okay, let's go back up to the top. Okay, so this section here is like my Kate Daniels section. I think I pretty much have everything that's been released in the Kate Daniels world except for Iron and Magic, which the second book in that trilogy or that series, I don't know how long it's going to be. That's being released probably next year. So at that point, maybe I'll consider buying both the books because I will need to reread that first one. And there is also a novella that was released last year. Oh, there were also the Wilmington Years novellas. I don't know if those were published physically. Anyway, I need to find out about those. Maybe I could put those on the books to buy list because I love Kate Daniels. So I would love to own all the books in that world. There are also some other Kate Daniels series that I have really loved, but most of them I've read via audiobook. I also think they're very unlikely that I would find them secondhand. If I did, I would definitely buy them. But in terms of buying them new, I kind of want to say I would love to own the Hidden Legacy books. However, the covers are ugly, ugly, ugly. So I think unless some like actual good editions get released, maybe I would hold off. Because I wouldn't want to buy the ugly, ugly covers and then have beautiful ones come out and feel like I need to buy them again, you know? This next square is pretty much all completed series or series I already own all of. Let's go down again. So these shelves, basically I just have my Descender. So I managed to get from a secondhand bookshop. I was shocked to find graphic novels in a secondhand, like a charity bookshop, but I got the first 2 books from the Descender graphic novel series. It's a 6-book series and then there's another spin-off that's 4 volumes. Obviously, if I found more secondhand, I would buy them, but I think at some point I might buy them new. Pretty much, if I already own part of a series, I want to prioritize completing the series over other books that I might want to buy. This shelf obviously is just sheep and other animals, so no book purchase is needed there. Right down the bottom is my Christopher Pike shelf. So in my teens, Christopher Pike was my most favorite author. If I could find, oh, there is actually some point thrillers down here too. If I ever come across secondhand point thriller books that I remember reading as a kid, I will 100% buy them. And they're usually just a couple of dollars, so why not? But if I see any Christopher Pike books kind of in these editions, there is also another edition I've seen them in. Anyway, if I find any of these secondhand, I will buy them. I need to always have with me a list of which ones I already have, because that's the problem I have, is that I can never remember which ones I have. Okay, back up. Okay, you are very precarious right now. I want to stay right up on the top of my shelves. I can't talk to you up there. Right up the top, I have these Buffy, like, graphic novel, the season 8 graphic novel, like, library editions. They're like hardcover editions, like binding up all the comics. And I bought the first 3 volumes from Book Depository for like, I think like $50, maybe even $80 each. Quite a while ago now. However, season 8 is 4 volumes and Past Me never bought the 4th volume, and I've looked it up, and as far as I can see, you can now not get them for under $200, and I will not be spending $200 on a volume of comics. So that's probably a series that's not gonna ever be finished unless I happen to come across it for under $100. And even then, like, am I actually willing to spend that much money? Given that, like, I like the Buffy comics, but I don't know I would say I love them. I'll probably reread them at some point. Maybe we'll think about what we're gonna do with those whenever they come up in my rereading project. The next shelf down that you can't quite see anymore is another completed series, so that's fine. On this shelf, one book I do have is Illuminae. So that's the first book in a trilogy. If I could find the other books in this edition secondhand, which is very unlikely, I would. But I don't think I would ever try to complete the series with new books at this point because I just didn't love the series enough, even though I did really love the first book. I also have Vicious and Vengeful here, and my editions are not the same size because at the time I bought this edition of Vicious because this was my favorite edition of Vicious, and I bought this edition of Vengeful because this was my favorite edition of Vengeful of the things that were available. But ooh, dangerous. These are not the same size, and it always annoys me, but like also doesn't matter. It doesn't really matter. So unless I saw another edition of either one that I really love that did match the other one, I don't think it's going to happen. Although I've just remembered very soon we'll be getting the third book in that series, and at that point maybe we'll get all new covers. I think also at that point I can only buy new covers if I love that third one. But I'll probably want to at least buy some edition of the third one so that I can have the whole set. Is that reasonable? I think so, because I do really love that series. The only other ones on this shelf is one that I'm quite annoyed about. I have Cinder and Scarlet in these editions, and then I bought the next two books, Cress and Winter, thinking they were matching, but they're not quite matching. It's really dangerous around here. They're like smaller, and also the spines are different. So if I could find these editions of these ones, I think I would buy them if I saw them secondhand. I'm never going to find them new, so it would have to be secondhand. I'm tempted, if I couldn't find that, to replace this whole series with the new, like, more pastel-y editions. But also, this is a YA sci-fi series, and I think I have to accept that even though I did love this series at the time, it's probably not a favorite enough to justify buying 4 new books when I already have the words of the books. Okay, then I will say I was already tempted about this one, The Dark Bolt. So this is a bind-up of 2 books by Victoria Schwab. The secondhand bookshop near my house has those 2 separate volumes currently. They're just sitting on the shelf. No one else is buying them. Every time I go there, they're like, would you like to buy us too? You did really like us. But I already own the bind-up and I love this edition, so I don't need the separate volumes. I don't need them. What I would like, I got this Roses and Rot, I think again free from the library. I would like to buy a lot of other Cat Howard stuff because I love Cat Howard. So those are probably gonna go on the book buying priority list. I probably will even buy them new eventually. But I think there's a chance I might find them secondhand, especially An Unkindness and Magicians, because that one was quite popular. Another thing I would like to do is both for Olivia Blake and Emma Carey. I love both these authors. Probably Emma Carey I like more for his writing. Olivia Blake I like more for her as a person. But I would like to buy some more books by both these authors, and there are books by both these authors that I've read and loved, so those need to go on the priority list. I think there's an okay chance I might find them from a secondhand bookshop, and if I did, I'd probably be willing to pay like a reasonable price, maybe even a high price for Emma Carey. I mean, most of these are new releases, so maybe if they're in good condition, I'd even pay a high price for these. I got this one for free, so free would actually be the perfect price. You know, a book that will be an instant buy when it gets released is the continuation of the Kingkiller Chronicles. So I have The Name of the Wind and The Wise Man's Fear. The editions don't match at all, and it 100% doesn't bother me. And I definitely will not try to fix that problem. I don't think at all, but I would never buy anything of Patrick Rothfuss's until he gives us that third book, so hopefully he'll do it one day. This is all completed series. I have actually already bought the 4th book in the Lady Astronaut series using my reward money that I had, and also Amal El-Mutar's other new release book. I've already bought that as well, or ordered it. When will it come? I don't know. This is New Zealand. Things take their time to come. I also have here like a stack of Anne McCaffrey books. I think, as I mentioned before, some of them are in questionable condition, but some of them, like this one's quite nice condition. I would like to try and get all of the books in this series and all of the books in this series. And I did look online. The new editions are ugly and boring. So we're going to be looking for old editions at secondhand bookshops. One of my local secondhand bookshops has quite a good like old sci-fi section. And actually, there is one of Anne McCaffrey's books there, but it's not in this world. It's another trilogy, and every time I go there, I'm tempted to buy it. I suspect if it's still there when I give myself my $10 budget next week, and there's nothing else at the secondhand bookshops that I want to buy, that might be where my first bit of budget goes. Okay, what else do we have down here? So on this shelf, I do have volume 1 and 2 of Lightfall. I've read volume 3. I didn't love it as much as volume 1 and 2, but I did still really like it. So if I see it secondhand, I would buy it. I would say not that likely given these are graphics. However, my sister got me this one secondhand, so it's possible. Or maybe my sister will gift me with book 3 at some point. We'll see. I do also have Before the Coffee Gets Cold. I only really like the first 2 books in this series. I got this first one secondhand, If I see the second one, I'll buy it. If I see any later books in the series, I don't think I'll buy them because I didn't like them. And I don't think, because of that, because I'm not loving the whole series, I don't think I'd ever buy that second book new, only secondhand. This one here is like a New Zealand author Greek myth retelling. I liked it, but I didn't really love it. And I got the second book from the library, so I know that's a possibility. But I think if I saw it secondhand, I would get it just to complete the series because it's a New Zealand author. And it is kind of quite a unique Greek myth retelling. But it's also possible I might unhaul this at some point so that someone else could enjoy it. So it could go either way. Either we're going to buy the second book or we're going to get rid of this one. But for now, we're keeping it. What else is down the bottom here? Not much of anything. Let's go look at the other shelves. Okay, then these shelves. Firstly, this is the Tiger and Dell series. This is the first 6 books bound up as 3 books. And then I think, oh, hiding on the top is the 7th book? No, it's not. Where is it? I definitely own it. I've hidden it somewhere. But there is also an 8th book. I don't think it would be high on the priority, but I might buy it at some point. If I saw it secondhand, definitely. Also, the Valdemar series, this is like a foundational book from my teens and early 20s. If I find any of these editions with the Jodie A. Lee covers, I will buy them. I have no interest in Valdemar books that don't have those covers, so I could never buy that series new because I'm pretty sure if you try to buy them new now, you only get the really boring, ugly covers. No thanks. So I would love to own the whole Valdemar series, regardless of whether I like them on a reread because it's so such a foundational series to me, but I could only ever buy them secondhand, and you don't see them around that often. Also here we have Black Trillium. This is another one where there were more books. This is actually written by Marianne Bradley, Julian May, and Andre Norton, and then it's a story about 3 princesses and they each wrote a different perspective. And then they also went off and wrote spin-off books, each author, I think. If I could find those spin-off books secondhand, I would buy them. But again, probably not new because I didn't love them enough to buy them new. Oh, here's the 7th book. Another auto buy will be if we ever get Capitol's Tower by Melanie Rawn, but it's been 25 years so far, so who knows? We won't hold our breath for that one. Oh, talking about Jodie A. Lee, I'm pretty sure. The Crown of Stars series by Kate Elliott. I've got the whole series here, but only the 6th and 7th book in these editions. If I ever find those editions secondhand, I'll buy them. Even if it's a slightly unreasonable price. They're so rare, hard to find, and I love them. I think they're so beautiful. And I also really like the series, so if I find those, definitely. My next shelf is my Robin Hobb shelf. I think I talked about the other day in my vlog. Basically, if I see a Robin Hobb book and it's not one I have already, I will probably buy it as long as the price isn't too unreasonable. I'm pretty happy with my editions of the Farseer trilogy, the Live Ship Traders, and the Tawny Man. Also, these editions of the Rainwell Chronicles, although I only have book 3 in this edition, which doesn't match, however, this edition is beautiful, so I don't actually even know now my perfect Robin Hobb collection. Is it these editions or these editions? So I kind of just allow myself to buy them secondhand, lower on the shelves. We'll see there's some other Robin Hobb books that are copies of these but different editions. This is my perfect set, and the other ones are ones that might replace these to make my perfect set, whatever that is. But I'm not too crazy with my Robin Hobb purchases because currently my local secondhand bookshop has this 3rd book in paperback that would match these 2, but I have a hardcover. And I know that it is a dumb move to replace a hardcover with a paperback just to have a matching set when the set does pretty much match. So I'm not too ridiculous, I think. Do you think I'm ridiculous? Okay, then for the next shelf, I do have here Strange the Dreamer. I have an annoyance with Strange the Dreamer in that I never like the matching editions. Any editions where I like the second book, Muse of Nightmares, I don't like the Strange the Dreamer matching edition. So I bought this, Strange the Dreamer. You can't really see it, I don't think, very well in the lighting, although maybe once I color correct. This edition, I love. The matching Muse of Nightmares, no. But if I find the matching Muse of Nightmares like this, I can't actually buy it new because new they only have a different size. So if I find the matching edition secondhand, I will buy it. Otherwise, I think eventually I will buy the non-matching Muse of Nightmares that I think is still a similar size even though it doesn't actually match. But it is a cover I like better. I do also worry if I take too long to get around to that, because I want to wait and give myself a chance to find the secondhand copy that matches. If I wait too long, will I miss out on that one and be forced to buy an even uglier cover? But I try not to be too affected by FOMO. I do also have the first book from the Wayward Children series by Sean Maguire. Now, I loved the first, the second, well, actually, I don't know if I even say I love the first. I love the second and the fourth books in this series, and then after that, not so much. So I don't really want to own the whole series, but maybe I would try and own the first 4? Is that ridiculous? Maybe. I also have never seen these secondhand, but I think it is a very popular series, so it is possible I could find them secondhand. I don't know. I think I'm still deciding how I feel about Sean Maguire, so we probably wouldn't prioritize buying these new anyway. Even though it is a series I already own part of. So before I said we should prioritize series where I already own part of it and I just need to finish the set, but I didn't love this enough for that to be true. So I think my prioritization on my spreadsheet also needs to take into account like what rating I've given the books. Definitely. Okay, let's move down. Oh wait, I forgot to talk about Junji Ito. So here I have the Death Note series. I have all of that, that's fine. I also have some Junji Ito books, and I know I really liked Tombs by him that I don't own. I think maybe I didn't like Tomie enough. And also, this is graphics, so it's expensive. I think really, I'm happy with my Junji Ito collection as long as I have Uzumaki. That's my favorite. Then, down here we don't have many books. The only one... Oh, I've just remembered. I forgot to talk about The Raven Cycle. I would like to buy the Dreamers trilogy. That's like a spin-off of the Raven Cycle. And probably I'll buy those new. It's unlikely I'd find them secondhand, but also I love that series, so I'd love to just have a nice new set of it. And I think I'm allowed to for those ones. Also, this series, The Diabolic, some people hated this, but like especially the direction the second book went in, but I loved it. So I would like to have the whole series of this. And I think because it's a fairly unloved series that I would have to buy these new. And I think I'm willing to do that. We also have here my Galactic Maloo Pliocene Saga books by Julian May. These I do want to do a reread of. And I have the whole series here. The only thing is this one here is a bind-up of the first 2 books. And I have the second book separately. I just don't have the first book separately. And currently at my local bookshop, they have the second, third, and fourth books in the series, and not the first one. Every time I see these books in a secondhand bookshop, it's the second, the third, and the fourth ones, never the first one. But if I ever see the first one secondhand, I'm going to buy it straight away. Okay, then we have here my Babysitter's Club shelf, and also I have some Sweet Valley High books. Basically, if I find any Babysitter's Club or Sweet Valley High books that I don't have secondhand in these editions, I'll buy them. Usually, if they are in secondhand bookshops, they're only a couple of dollars each max. For this shelf over here, it's kind of a bit of a mishmash. So firstly, I have the second and third books in the Shaman's Crossing. No, it's called the Soldier Sun trilogy. I would love to own all of that series, but I only have mismatched editions. So like my other Robin Hood books, I'd rather have matching editions. I love it enough to try and get matching editions. But also, I'm only going to get these secondhand. I believe that I will find them eventually secondhand if I'm patient. This series, the Renshai series by Mikizaki Raikut, I'd love to own all of these. Probably not these covers if I could manage. I think most of them had Jodie A. Lee cover art, which I would love to have. But again, it's just going to be waiting to see if I can find them secondhand. I do think maybe I found them online secondhand somewhere once upon a time. So at some point I could put my budget towards that. I also have up here Wicked. I bought this at a book fair because I thought at the time this edition was cool. What I've realized is that what I really want is the editions that I had when I read the series in my 20s, like these little small paperbacks. If I could find those editions, I'll only find them secondhand. If I could find those, I will buy them straight away. But this edition, I just don't have the emotional attachment to it for some reason. And like, I loved Wicked, but other books in the series, I didn't love as much. So we also have here the fourth book in the Seven Waters series. I don't even like the fourth book that much. I really like the first and second books in this series, so I've been keeping the fourth book because if I happen to find all the other ones in the series, then maybe I would still want to have this. But if I never find the other ones, then maybe I wouldn't bother trying to complete the whole set. Maybe I'd just try and get the first book, maybe the second one. This Diana Treeguard book, this has turned into just a let's look at all my books and decide if I need to unhaul them. This is a Diana Treeguard book. She was like a witchy private investigator. I know Mercedes he got in a lot of trouble with religious people for these books, I think. But I remember I liked it when I was younger. I have this one in the series. I would kind of like to have more books in the series. If I find them secondhand, I will get them. But I also probably need to reread this to decide if I still like it. But when do I have time to fit that into my reading? I just don't feel like it's a priority for now, so I stick the book down here. I also have these books from the Jaren series. Again, if I could find this whole series secondhand, then maybe I would keep it. But otherwise, I might just unhaul these at some point. Oh, and another Mercedes Lackey series. So these are not matching editions, but they are the second and third books in the series. So to do a reread of these, because I don't think my library has them, I would need to find the first book secondhand. So these will just be sitting down here until that happens. Then I also have these shitty white covers that I've already said that I hate, so I'm just going to unhaul this, I think. Because I think I can get this whole series from the library if I decide I want to read it. I don't know if I do because it's like a YA Brandon Sanderson series and I haven't really liked his other YA stuff that I've read. And I haven't necessarily heard great things about this series, so probably... I used to think I just wanted to read everything by Brandon Sanderson, but given some more recent disappointments, I'm not so committed to that kind of completionist approach anymore. Okay, then this bottom shelf is really the biggest mess of all the messes. I've got some Robin Hobb books that I just have 2 out of 3 of different trilogies. So I'm waiting to see if I get the other ones. Then, I don't know, either they move up there or I sell them as a set. Who knows? I actually would love to find secondhand these Anastasia books that I read when I was a kid. I had the whole set of these that I'd collected secondhand and then, idiot me, unhauled them when I moved some point in my 20s. And I'm so sad because I would love to reread these. But really just for nostalgia purposes, which is the same with these Alex books and these Tessa Duda books. She's a New Zealand author. I also have this Magisterium series. I would love to have the whole series in these editions, but all I ever see secondhand is these editions, which I think are kind of ugly. But also this series, I liked it, but I think I would only ever buy these secondhand, and the chances of me finding the whole series secondhand in these editions, low. But I'm keeping them on the bottom shelf in some kind of hope, I guess. Also, at some point I did find these 2 books in the Chesuli Chronicles, these funny old editions. I actually would love, once again, to have the editions that I think is Jodi A. Leela art. If it's not, they're still really beautiful editions. Those are the ones I'd like to have. But if I happen to see any more of these for $2, it says I spent. And I think I actually bought this one in this town before I lived here. Anyway, if I found more of these, I would buy them just for the old book cover fun. I'm just thinking if there's anything here I want to talk about. I do have these really crappy editions of Stephen King books. These I saved from a rubbish bin, and they're quite water damaged. And I read them. I really liked them. Look, it's got giant holes in the pages. I feel like this is why I tell myself now if I'm buying secondhand books, they need to be good quality, because I just don't think these would be fun to read. And also, there's so many Stephen King books in secondhand bookshops. I know I could get better quality ones. So I'm probably going to unhaul those. And honestly, is anyone going to want them? Or should I just throw them in the bin? Also, here's my edition of Warbreaker that I was really excited to get for free at one point. But now I just keep looking at this and thinking, not only do I hate this white cover, but do I really want a book that's been eaten or something? Probably not. Also, since we're talking about books that I bought that I probably shouldn't have, this copy of Elantris, I was really excited because it was a hardcover, it was pretty cheap, and it is also signed, well, with some kind of scribble in it. But more and more I think, I don't actually care if books are signed, so I'm never willing to pay more for a signed book. Never. I think pretty much everything else down here I will probably unhaul at some point. The only exception is the Power of One and Tandia. I would love to have lovely matching editions of these. I have not found them. Like, these are really popular books. Why are there not like really beautiful covers of them? Part of my problem is that there are nice covers of them, but they have orange spines and I don't like orange. Although I do have editions of Dark Matter and Recursion with orange spines and I don't mind them on my shelf. So maybe I could learn to overlook it. I don't know, but I will keep an eye out for Power of One and Tandia editions in the secondhand bookshops. But I'm only buying them if they're beautiful and cheap. Okay, I realized in all of that I missed this shelf, and that's annoying because I also would love to have the sequel to this book series. In fact, that's one that whenever I think about what books are missing from my shelf, I always think of the sequel to this one. And also this series by Lee Murray. I'm a little bit annoyed about this one now because this is a New Zealand author. This was independently published and I found this secondhand. I was amazed. I never thought I would find it secondhand. And then I thought, well, now that I have this, I should really get the other two books in the series. I think this is the third one. I think so. However, when I looked this up, I found out that firstly, she's releasing a fourth one later in the year, which is cool, except that as part of that, she's doing all new covers, which means I wouldn't be able to get ones matching this unless I find them secondhand, but I won't be able to get that fourth one like that. So if I'm trying to collect the series, what am I even doing now? And this is the problem with not buying books straight away, because then it gets harder and harder to get matched editions. I really need to go back to the times when I didn't care about having matched editions. Anyway, this series will also be on my list. And in fact, at this point, I have made my spreadsheet. I really like it. However, what I have realized from it is that I have a lot of books that I would like to buy. I did actually also add onto my spreadsheet my recent favorites from like the last 5 years, ones of those that I would like to own. But once I put the rest of the spreadsheet together, I can't see myself buying those anytime soon. Because basically, for my TBR, like my priority TBR, is probably still going to cost me a couple of $100. Then my like longer term TBR is like another $600. So that's like nearly 2 years of budget just on my TBR. In terms of completing my shelf, like all the things we just went through, that's probably like $2,000. Now, if I could get more secondhand, then obviously that'll bring it down, but that's like another 4 years. So getting to buy any kind of recent favorites, or even when I get to those like reread projects and deciding to buy those if I like them, that's going to take a while to actually have the budget for it. I do think if anytime soon I find in a secondhand bookshop a book that I rated like 4 or 5 stars and I know I'd really like to own it and the price is reasonable, then I'll probably let myself buy it. Unless the only exception I have is that if I only read it via audiobook, and I think I would only ever reread it via audiobook, then I shouldn't buy it unless it's like super, super cheap. Maybe if it's super cheap, like $2. So anyway, it feels like there's a lot of books that I would like to buy and it's going to take me a long time to get through it. But I will say, I had actually, as I did all this, counted the books on my bookshelves and it only came to like just over 500 books, like 506 books. So everything on my spreadsheet now is like 220 books. So even if I add them in, I'd still only be at like 700 books. And if we say you need 1,000 books to have a library, I'm still not even there. Although I also wonder if my shelves could actually fit 1,000 books. So I'm probably happy with just like slowly buying books and slowly expanding my library. We don't need to go too fast. And if I don't ever get some books, that's also fine. I don't want to get too like completionist about things. I just want to have some nice shelves. And like, we're almost there already. Anyway, I do think this video has been really long and rambly, but that's kind of my general thoughts about my bookshelves and where I am with my book buying decisions. I'd love to know how you kind of make your book buying decisions and like how do you stop yourself from getting too out of control with your book buying, or like what do you even consider to be too out of control? Let's chat down in the comments. Also, do subscribe if you'd like to see more of my bookish videos. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching. I hope that you are doing well and I will see you next time.